Right above us, they're playing. It's cool.
Nobody around us is going to
Yeah. Well, what's good about it is you're kind of learning the basics. You know, you kind of dumb it down a little bit, even for the kids that are have been playing. Kind of, you know, it's pretty neat. But he was signed up for a tackle. But they said that he couldn't play no tackle in soccer. I signed him up, but he played last year, but he played flag in soccer. And they were able to make it work. But the tackle practice so much more.
Sure.
Soccer.
You played Pee Wee football.
I was pretty close. He is too. He wants to do it, but then
All of my kids played Pee Wee football.
All right.
Pretty awesome.
Okay,
I'll never have.
it's actually 6:01. We'll call this meeting in order for the Upson County Board of Commissioners for Tuesday, July 25th, 2023. If you would at this time, please rise for an invocation followed by our pledge.
Lord, bless this group as we get together to do the county business and make sure that we do the right thing by everybody involved in this county. I also want you to put your arms around the two Rock Hill Volunteer Fire Department personnel that are still struggling with life. And please bring them healing. All this we ask in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Can you join me in the pledge? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Well, there it is. We have something unique to do tonight. So, it's my pleasure to introduce Miss Brindley Simon. And I'm assuming, y'all just introduce yourselves and tell us what you're about, okay?
Good evening, everyone.
Stand on the X so they can see it.
You know about the mix.
we're on YouTube.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brindley Simons. I'm Little Miss Georgia 4th Street Queen. I'm so thankful to be here today. Thank you.
I'm her mom, Ashley Simons. I'm a teacher at Upson Lake Elementary. And I just wanted to say that she competed back in June as she represented Upson County to be in the state pageant. She competed against all other counties in the state of Georgia, and she won the state title. And then we will go in September back down to Tifton, which is where the forestry's housed, and she will compete against national contestants. So she'll represent the state of Georgia against all other states in the U.S. whoever decides to show up. And she's also currently your Little Miss Upson Elementary School. And she's the first Thompson-Upson County Junior Miss Queen. So, yep. So we're just adding it on to that. But thank y'all for having us, and thank you for recognizing her.
Thank you.
And if you have any friends or businesses that we are taking sponsorships for the program book, so if anybody has a business or would like to do donations or sponsor her for that, just contact me, and that would be great. Your name will go in the National Forestry Program book with your logo, your name, company or business, or just your personal name, along with her information and picture from Upson County and state of Georgia. So
Awesome.
I appreciate it.
Thank
y'all so much.
You want a picture with the board of
Yes, please. Go ahead and go up to the
Well,
front line and do the picture.
let's see.
I would go do this. I would have her come around.
Well, last time they just scooted in the very middle from their chairs when you want to. Unless you just want to come down, that's up to y'all.
She can
Well, she can come up here.
Okay.
Yeah, she can come up here and stand up on top of the
Balance out here. Lorenzo missed a good night, didn't he?
All right, 1, 2, 3. Thank you again.
All right.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
All right. Next on the agenda are public comments. It looks blank from here.
It is.
Okay, so we'll move right along. Gentlemen, next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Items on the consent for your approval is the approval of the July 11th, 2023 regular meeting minutes and approval of resolution 09.2023 to officially adopt the 2023 comprehensive plan. Is there a motion on the consent?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ellington?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes. All right. Next is presentation and acceptance of the June 30th, 2023 financial report.
Ready?
Ready?
All right, I'm ready. All right, yes, sir, thank you. You each have a printed copy. There's probably a loose leaf, hopefully, inside, because I made a mistake in this one particular.
You made two
report.
mistakes today.
Two mistakes.
That shirt and this.
So, anyway, I wanted to make sure the numbers were accurate. So we'll go through this, as I said, really quickly. What I think I'm going to do is jump forward a little bit, because I think there's a topic I know that all of you are very interested in, given the city's decision on how, with their funding of the joint project. So I'm going to flip to page 14. Hopefully everyone can see this pretty well. But on page 14, if you'll notice, and I'm not going to be able to jog you through there as well as I thought, so I'm going to look on page 14, the paper version myself. What are the biggest takeaway from this is that after putting the budgets together for the joint, not the budgets, but putting together the forecast for the joint projects, and annualizing most of the numbers to the end of the year, it appears as if even though the city's funding is based on an average of the prior 2 years' budgets, that we will be fine. So we would not have to increase millage rates or anything to compensate for a lack of additional funding. And we'll tell you that there's some of the capital purchases, and there haven't been many, if we purchase something with non-SPLOST dollars, so to speak. For example, we had to purchase a new range for the senior center. We bill the city 50% of that cost. So they take care of that for us. Well, actually, yeah, that's correct. But that was the biggest takeaway from this slide. And I did want to point out to you at the bottom the actual sharing ratio as it works out. I've got the city funding numbers there, and I've got what we budgeted. I did not go back and change the budget that you all approved after the city decided that it didn't want to approve the budget, but came up with a different funding strategy. So what they're actually paying us, based on those 2 year averages, works out to an actual 71.5% to 28.5% split. So we're paying 71.5%, so to speak, based on that ratio. But nonetheless, even though they are not, or that's the funding ratio as it works out based on what they've said they would fund. But even so, given the expenditures where we are today and what I'm forecasting to the end of the year, it's not going to be a negative for the county. It's the best way to say it.
Well, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Because you just answered the question I was about to ask you.
Okay.
But I have another question. So I know the agreement says that it'll be funded at a 2 year average, but I don't think the agreement specifies or says that if one says it'll be a 2 year average, that means the other one. It obviously doesn't, because we're now paying a higher portion.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we doing that?
We shouldn't be.
county taxpayers picking up more to bill.
Yep.
It's not equal.
It's not, okay, so what Alan just explained is that, so if your forecast is that we're okay,
Yeah,
but we're picking up a greater line share of the budget, if we went back to 64.9, which was the ratio that we use, 7.5% for the rest of the year. If we went to a 2-year average, what would that mean? Don't have to answer it now, but I mean
and I will say that that would be one thing I did not calculate and show would be actual or forecasted actuals, what the percentage works out to be. The presentation here is just showing you based on what we budgeted in terms of expense, or what the city would fund,
Right.
and what they're agreeing to fund. But we're doing well in those projects. We're not having to contribute any more of what we said we would fund, is essentially what I'm trying to say. We're giving our 64.9%, the county is, to joint projects. But yeah, at the end of the day, the mix may be very different.
we're giving our 64.9, but the actual sharing ratio is 71.5.
Based on the budget, that's correct.
If I may, just based on the budget, not the actual.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So what is it? So what is the actual sharing ratio?
Well, I don't have that calculated.
Not,
Right. I don't.
Well,
So really, in the end, once the year is done and wrapped up, and I go back and figure out, if there was any excess that needs to be returned to, say, us, possibly them, I can't say. It just depends. Right now, there may be a little, I will tell you, there may be some, because I am forecasting, like for recreation department, if you look up top, I'm forecasting that we're going to have almost a $200,000 surplus in the recreation fund this year. So when we have those issues of surplus, then we have to go back and calculate, well, how much do we need to remit back to, say, the county's joint project fund or the city for their contributions. It gets more complicated.
Right, that's what I was about to say. It's gonna get really complicated because we gotta determine what percentage we actually.
Right. And so.
And then that's when
in
everybody's gonna
essence,
start
it
going,
does-
well, we do,
Right, it does come back to, really,
That's the conflict.
it's probably gonna come close to the budget ratio, is that, yes, at the end of the day, even though we remit some funds back, we wind up contributing almost 72%, and they contribute 29% to the joint projects.
have y'all had any discussion?
I mean, that was
You haven't had
gonna
any
happen,
discussion
of
with your
course.
counterparts down the hall on that
No.
number and what that means?
I mean, we all instinctively knew that was gonna happen, because once they decided to do an average as opposed to going with what we said we needed in terms of those budgets, it was gonna be less, because the average the prior 2 years was less than the 2023 budget. So the only option for us at that time was to reduce our own budget, but we had already moved forward and budgeted and set new salaries and everything, so.
Well, I mean, shouldn't we, and we talked about this the other day just a little bit, I mean, shouldn't we adjust our budget based on the 2-year average to be, so that all things are the same?
I don't think so.
Why?
Well, we can adjust the budget. We'll just, I suppose, have less of a surplus, since I'm predicting it for, just to use recreation as an example. Because we're going to contribute less from the joint projects fund to recreation, if that makes sense.
Less
Well,
to,
to better explain it, to be able to reduce the budget to match what the city agreed to fund, I have to go back and reduce the budgets for compensation and benefits. But that's not reality. We've already, y'all approved those budgets, and we're already compensating people at those levels.
right.
So,
But also, Mr. Chairman, if I may, there are vacancies in those budgets that we're managing with this in mind.
So, yeah, we can contribute less, meaning we would ask less of our taxpayers from the joint project millage rate standpoint. We could risk both, the funds winding up in a deficit for the year.
If we went back to, break even to where we don't have a surplus, would that put us closer to the percent ratio?
Sure, but it's gonna come back to us at the end of the year. I mean, even with the surplus.
So
Recreation's gonna pay back the joint project fund for any surplus.
correct me if I'm interpreting this wrong. So a county taxpayer paying the joint projects, they're actually contributing more of their tax dollar than the city joint projects taxpayer is.
Yes.
What's fair?
Well, that started last year with the
That-
change
yeah,
in
that's right.
not having the same millage rate.
Several
The value of
years
the
ago.
dollar
Right.
now.
I mean, this is.
But now,
this is
this
Going on the
just
third year
complicates
for
it.
that now.
Right.
So
This
this
is a
compli-
mess. This is just getting worse. It ain't getting better.
I mean,
And,
Well, Mr. Chairman, if you remember, the city made up, with it, they would have been required to increase that over the years, which they've just been supplementing it with other revenue aside from property tax.
right.
Yep.
So, but and I get your point about, we budgeted for employee compensation and benefits and all that stuff. And yeah, that's a done deal. We had,
Right.
But,
So in theory.
why wouldn't we, okay, we had that, we adjust the budget to show that actual, what they're actually earning, earning and costing, and then, I mean, I'm surprised at the surplus money, and I get it, there's vacancies that we're managing. There's vacancy in 911, probably vacancies. Recreation, obviously, there's some, but the reality is,
they getting the service they ain't fully paying for.
Well, your cost, I mean, our expenditures drives our budget, so we came up with what it would cost us to run all of these departments and funds. So then we gotta fund it. And if we went with the same, what the city's agreeing to fund, then, and we've already set the budgets, then the only other way is supplement that from someplace else.
it's a deficit.
Right.
And then
well,
we gotta address
If we
it,
have a deficit.
and we have to address it through some sort of budget amendment.
We could run out of cash, which means we either raise millage rates or we pull it from general fund. I mean, you gotta pay the expenditures one way or the other.
But, I mean.
That was never resolved on how we would deal with this in the end between us and
Well,
the
this is
city
a-
people.
This is,
Yeah, the agreement is silent on that part.
I know,
Yeah.
it was like a 2-year average, and I thought, and shame on me for just assuming this, was, that both parties, if one said, okay, we're not funding it, it goes on a 2-year average, then the other one would automatically default to a 2-year average, and then we would just let it ride out and see, okay, okay, well, we're at that point where we've got some hard decisions to make. Where are you going to come up with? Because a 2-year average obviously isn't going to equal today's expenses.
Sure.
So that's where I thought we were going. That's why I've always asked it. When are we going to be concerned? And just always, it's been explained to me that, well, we've got positions we haven't filled. We should be okay. I didn't realize that we were actually paying the full share of what we approved for the joint projects budget.
Plus theirs. Plus the remainder of what they're not paying.
Well,
I think, Mr. Chairman, I think I can help here. We're showing that in the accounting, but those unspent dollars will come straight back to us, is what Alan's trying to say. So they're not being, so we're taking our portion of it, we're moving it over to these funds to fund it the way we budgeted. But in the end, that's going to generate a surplus that actually comes back to us.
but
So
explain to me why there's not, that doesn't create a disparity between what a county taxpayer is paying for the same service as a city taxpayer is paying.
it's not been equal in the last 3 years.
I know.
Yeah. and then-
Now it's even further apart.
Well,
Yeah,
they
now
have,
budgeting
again, the
won't-
city has other revenues supplementing
Right.
their joint projects.
But they're not using that. They're just on
Well,
this, in this case.
They still are.
Well, but we're 75, 71 and a half to 28 and a half instead of 64.9 to 35.
Well, I guess, has there been any more talks when they keep saying we'll have town hall, or we're gonna do this, we're gonna have another town hall, we're gonna do this.
In
The roads don't get
late
flooded,
May,
we need
late
to
May,
do
we
something.
met as staff. And staff was really unable to tell us what more we could provide
We have-
that would get us an adopted budget.
And so we're scheduled for our next joint projects.
Because it seems like there's no incentive for them to do anything. I mean,
Our-
everything's running smooth, and you're not, if you
I'm
give me
paying
free
less.
cable and you're not gonna send me a bill, I'll keep using the free cable.
Until you get called.
So,
And then you're gonna pay for those. So, I don't know, we've got, this issue is, I mean,
the best of all worlds would to have had the city to have told us sooner that they weren't willing, they were not going to approve our budgets. Possibly, but then we would have had to have reduced our budgets for joint projects. That creates a disconnect because now I got to reduce what we're going to pay. If we're increasing rates for everybody, COLA adjustments, we can't carve out joint projects employees. So
right.
to get there, trying to finagle the budget, I mean, I don't know how you do it. I mean,
Well, the realistic way is, I mean, we're deficit spending. I hate to use that thing in a way, I mean, because, so when your money runs out, you turn the lights off.
well, I don't know how you do, I mean, we got
I mean,
100% of the
we're not gonna
employees
turn the
running in
lights
hours.
out. We'll figure it out.
Right.
But right now, to Commissioner Elmer's point, there's no incentive to fix this.
No, I would certainly agree with that. But keep in mind, we are managing to a lower number, so that when actual is done and we're closed, Al and I are going to try to bring that as close to the original percentages we can possibly get it. So,
I mean, 'cause
by underspending what we budgeted.
we're gonna be right back, look, planning for a joint project budget before we even get this one approved.
Yeah, so moving ahead in a couple of months, we'll be going through this process all over again. Our approach, if this hasn't changed, is going to be to also budget to that 2-year average this time as well. But we didn't have that opportunity to do it the first time around.
Well, we need to.
So we'll reconcile it at the end and then we'll budget appropriately the next time
Well,
around.
hopefully at our next joint projects meeting, which I think is August the 14th. It's a Tuesday in conjunction with the city council meeting. It's their turn to kind of lead it, and set the agenda that we can ask them to make. Alan, if you can make this presentation of something like this at that time and show that there's
Yeah, and I don't want to belabor, I don't know how we budget to an average. I mean, because we have so many employees, and you got 911, the sheriff's department in here. I don't know how we budget to an average and then have a budget different for everybody else. I mean, compensation is the biggest driver of these budgets. We'd have to have reduced compensation for every employee in the joint project.
or
to make that
or you
work.
don't provide the service.
Or don't provide the services.
Right.
But 911's got to stay.
So, like we said, there's no incentive to
Right.
adopt the budget and fund the budget. I mean, so anyway,
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's
It really-
absolutely correct, yeah.
it complicates things.
Yeah.
I mean, the easy thing is you
Well,
Make hard
hopefully we have a
decisions.
ray of light. We've provided them a lot of information, and we haven't gotten any questions. So,
Well, to your point the other day, we're hopeful that they'll come back to the table and continue to participate and fully fund, these joint projects.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, Alan, we went down I mean, justifiably so, that rabbit hole. And it ain't going away.
An important conversation, Mr. Chair, for sure.
Very important. I thought I'd start there first. So back on page 1, what I've given you here is a summary of all of our major governmental funds, excluding the debt and capital funds. These would be the funds that have, there are our operating funds, and those funds would be the general fund, the joint projects fund, recreation fund, Squirrel Bluff fund. And they do not include component units like the airport or IDA. And so what I did is I did basically a grouping of all those funds to give you a total. And one look at it to see where we are, whether we're reasonable this year, is to look at where we were last year at this same time. And we're a little higher in terms of overall expenditures, but the good thing is, you look at those percentages, in both years, we're below 50%. And that's a good sign, if you want to look at it that way. That means that we're not incurring the expenditures we thought we would incur. Now, what's driving that? For the most part, it's personal services or personnel. That's your wages and everything, your benefits. And that's due to turnover and vacant positions. And as we fill vacant positions, through the year, you're not incurring 365 days of compensation costs.
We set the budget this year for 100%.
We did.
You budgeted for 100%?
No, sir, I did it differently for 2023. I budgeted 50% of all vacant positions.
Okay.
So last year I had done 100. It works out too much, given the level of vacancies that we have. If you have 1 or 2 in the department, it's fine, but we had quite a bit, in 2022, the beginning of 2023, in certain departments particularly.
But we're operating, right?
We're operating.
Are we operating? I mean, my phone's not blowing up except for litter and.
We're trying to make sure it doesn't.
Well, I know, but so where I'm gonna say something here I may regret, but it hasn't stopped me before. Is so do we need them? So as when we budget for next year, then we need to. Now I know there are positions that we've got to fill. I mean I know, but I mean we're limping along. Everybody's struggling to fill positions. And maybe we just adjust the budget accordingly. So, food for thought when y'all come to us with the 24 budget.
Sure. Yeah,
as long as we take an organization-wide approach.
That's the county manager and HR director.
But the last 3 years, we've looked at a tremendous amount of vacant positions.
We have.
And we've managed to operate the county. And some departments have been a little more stressed than others, I understand that. But I think at one point, we probably had right close to 60 job openings, vacancies, if I'm not mistaken, including Sheriff's Department, jail, rec, all departments. And we were operating the county on that. I mean, it's just, you gotta ask that question. I mean, how do you, if you're doing it,
Can we get by with less?
Can you get by with less? I mean, and people that's pulling more weight, then pay them a little more and compensate.
Especially if we're doing it for
properly.
multiple years.
Right.
Well,
It's not like a one-off.
And I'll be the first to acknowledge that we, as the Board of Commissioners and our staff, we are less positions now than we were 5 years ago. But we are over, as an organization, we are in the plus. As a Board of Commissioners, we're in the negative. So.
And I would say too, and I'm not trying to beat on anyone in particular, a big component, a big portion of those compensation costs, the county manager, we don't have control over.
Right.
So, I mean, approximately 60% of the total comp budget is on the sheriff's office. So,
Public safety is important,
it is.
and we're struggling to keep those officers and retain officers. Anyway, we know the conversation there.
Yeah. I don't have my budget book in front of me, but I had to actually put it in there. I think the total between public safety, and that includes animal control as well, and legal, it was like 70% of our total compensation cost, something in that range.
Oh, that's where the people are, majority.
So, we're looking good. I mean, as far as if I'd seen something where we're way over, we're over 50%, then there may be some concern, just depends. Sometimes there's a one-off expenditure that winds up. So far, not here. I will tell you, it's coming, and I will have to come forward with some more budget amendments because we just paid right at $300,000 for part of our storm damage, and we have another $820,000 coming from a vendor or contractor that helped us with the road repairs. So we got about $1.1 million unbudgeted general fund expenditures.
Remember that point when we talk about millage rate here in a minute.
Oh, we're going to talk about millage rate? I'm not prepared for that. So I am, but I don't have materials with me. But the next thing, I just have the cash balances, and I show the cash balances for those exact funds that are in the consolidated expenditures budget to actual above. You can see our June 30 cash balance, total general fund was 6.6 million, and our total cash balance at year end, that's when we're flush for cash. That's when most of the tax revenues have come in. We're flush. Then we're back down at June 30. We're at 5.9 million, almost 6 million in total cash at June 30 this year.
Well, and, all right, so our fund balance policy says that we won't drop below 33% of our total budget. So I know there was a lot of reallocation, because when you look at December of 22, there's a big number. I know you reallocated some of this fund stuff, right? So are we
At year end, so that's where we need it. So our policy is a year end, so that's where we'll get. Yeah. But the idea is behind, because we use that for cash flow to get to the end of the year.
I'm with you now. Don't want to go back to TANs.
No.
Won't go back. How about that?
Well, that's part of that mills rate discussion. So, because we basically, if you don't have enough cushion at 12/31 or enough cash, and you come out with a new budget, we're spending on that cash until we get paid again in November, December. For the most part, there's loss, there's the insurance premium that comes in, but yeah. So you got to have enough in the kitty, so to speak, to get
You got to live within our means.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
So, but that's basically look at our cash. Move on, the next page, this is hard for getting it all on one slide. This is just a graphical display. The table above.
This is
That's the revised one. No surprise. You look at the big green chunk, that's personnel services. So it's almost 60% of our total budget.
Check your book, there's supposed to be a loose page in there.
Yeah, it's the other version. There you go.
There you go.
Okay. And that just kind of puts it in a nice, pretty picture for you, gives you an idea. Where's all of our taxpayer dollars? Where's most of it going? Personnel, 58%. 16.6% of it's our total operating cost. And that's everything from repairs and maintenance to paying contractors to do work for us, all of that good stuff. Supplies is the 8.2%. Supplies actually is supplies as we know it, but also a big part of the way the Georgia does it in terms of the chart of accounts. Supplies includes utilities as well, gas and oil.
All right, so you reading from this one or the new one?
No, this one.
The one in the book? Thought you said this was the new one.
This is the new one.
The one in the book's the new one.
No, sir, that one's the new one.
And that ain't the one you're reading from.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. My bad. So we're what, 62.8% and 63% on personnel costs? 17.8%, thank you, Mr. Jones. 17.8% for operating costs. And then the supplies in the yellow is 8.8% in 2023 versus 7.5%. So utilities are included within supplies, just the way that, I could do it differently. I just try to stick by because how the budgets were set up. And supplies is everything from electricity, water, fuel, oil, nuts, bolts, everything the way they categorize it. Next. Capital expenditures, we haven't done a lot this year. I say a lot, relatively speaking. The one biggest chunk is the capital expenditures out of the 2022 SPLOST. That is directly related to our judicial facility.
And just for entertainment value, that, there's nothing in here on Judicial Center.
Correct.
Correct. Oh, yeah.
Nothing in general
here.
fund
No,
for
you're
courthouse.
These
It's
do not.
all right here in 2022 penny splashed.
That's true.
We need to
And
mail
that's
some of that
that's a
someday.
great point.
I know, that's why I mentioned that.
The previous table and the charts only reflect what's in our operating budgets.
Right.
These are all funded out of the first three are capital projects funds. What we have paid for out of the general fund is there, roughly 80,000 and about 11,000 out of the joint projects fund. The courthouse really should have been labeled as infrastructure, but the 131,000 is for the landscaping of the courthouse out of 2016 plan. And most of machinery and equipment, 356, almost all of it are vehicles. Big chunk of that was, the sheriff's vehicles and a few vehicles that we've had come in that we've ordered in the past.
Are we done with vehicles for this year? All vehicles have been ordered, have been delivered?
No. I've had an issue. There were, the road departments received 2 out of 5 that you guys approved for them, but Wade Ford went through an ownership change and a personnel shakeup. So some things got dropped for those guys. So the order window is closed out right now for the F-250s.
What about sheriff department vehicles? Have they
And he
all-
hasn't requested any more. I mean.
But what we approved for this year have been delivered?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's correct. Next page. I'll speed up a little bit. This is your general fund that I've broken out. Revenues are reported as negative numbers, and I say reported, that's only because it comes out of the system when I download, extract the trial balance. It's real difficult to convert them all to positive numbers when you're using pivot tables. So you just understand these aren't losses, but these are actual revenues. And these are the major groupings of revenues. Obviously, on the taxes, those include not only general property taxes, but tax revenues from lost. And there I do have a slide further back that expands taxes to show you what sorts of taxes that's being recorded in this line. We're about where we were last year, which is a good measure. We're 23.9% last year, 23.6% this year. And with a lot of our revenues, with the fines and fees, forfeitures, licenses and permits, there can be we don't recognize or collect those revenues on an even level. So we can have a spurt in a month or two, or So we're about where we were last year. And just to let you know too, I've got a footnote here on other financing sources. Those are interfund transfers in, and that really is the transfer in for the most part. It's the biggest part of that number is really we collect the tax revenues for unincorporated services and we transfer that into the general fund because that's where our unincorporated services are accounted for. Expenditures below, again, reasonable, below 50%, which is a good sign at this point of the year. The other financing uses, those really represent the transfers to the recreation fund for offset of the county park and what we fund for Squirrel Bluff. All right, moving forward, page 5. And really page 5 through page 6, and I won't go through all of these with you, all the way down to page 13 is a more expanded view by department. So it shows you the expenditures, budget, actual, remaining balance, percent used for each department. So all in all, we look pretty good. Each department looks pretty good. There are a couple departments that are right at the edge or slightly over 50%. I've made some footnote notations. It's very short and brief. To the right, I will tell you with jail operations, food costs are much higher than we budgeted, and medical costs in the invoices that are coming in.
Inmate medical.
Right, it's pretty high. Judicial and bailiff, part of that going on there is just higher court reporting fees than we are originally budgeted. It's not much, it's not a lot, so. Everything looks pretty good. There's nothing that really, I'm looking through to make sure I'm not missing anything. Probate's a little over, always, whenever we have an employee within the department changes an insurance status, adds a dependent or family coverage, it makes a big difference in what you budgeted, particularly if that person, and we did have that issue.
Well, especially in small offices.
Yeah, it really shows up.
Yeah.
And we're trying to be, and we probably, maybe sometimes, I'm trying to be very judicious with the budget, so I'm kind of trying to get it exact as I can on some of these costs, but sometimes it can hurt you because it looks like, whoa, you're way over your budget there. Well, we fine tune it to every single employee on these healthcare costs. But yeah, no one to really point out, and that covers every department within our general fund. If you advance over to page 12, here's the table, and certainly you can look at this later if you have questions for me and ask. It just expanded each of those major categories of revenues. And on the general property taxes, now in the general fund, you've got both taxing districts. You got the county M&O and you got the unincorporated services. I've got those combined. The $723,000 actual, majority of that is prior year taxes that was collected this year, assessed last year, collected this year. The loss is in good shape, and if you actually forecasted that number out, we probably will hit 2.8 million or close to 2.8 million. Approximately what we budgeted.
On that, back on that 772,
Yes,
prior
sir.
year taxes, would that also include, that's just everything that comes over that wasn't,
Yes,
I mean, so anything, any breaches of any kind of CUVA, all that stuff, that money that comes in would be lumped into that 722?
I can inquire.
Say exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good
It's
question.
going someplace, but I'm not sure about all that.
Well,
It
it's coming up
probably is
here,
being recorded.
but-
Well, I know, most anything related to real estate property taxes, except for penalties or interest, is going in that line item, as far as recording purposes go.
So penalties and interest.
Right.
I'll
That may be where,
I'm not exactly sure we're posting it there, but we'll look.
Who is it on? I can't say exactly. I'd have to go back and see where that's mapped. So I will tell you, for revenue recognition purposes, yeah, most of that tax revenue is from the prior year, was already recognized in the prior year's revenue. At the end of the year, we do an adjustment to adjust our taxes receivable. So it is good cash flow, but from a revenue standpoint, that revenue was already recognized last year.
Okay.
Let's see. Intergovernmental revenues, most of those, pretty self-explanatory. The school board, as you know, that's school resource officer. Yeah. Any questions? We can skip over that next page. Unless y'all want to talk about 14 again. Page 15 is Joint Projects Fund itself. And this is a high-level summary. Remember, within the Joint Projects Fund, we moved. Now within Joint Projects, we have the Archives, Senior Center, EMA, I'm leaving out one.
911.
No, 911's a separate fund, its own separate fund. We'll see in just a minute. I know I'm overlooking one. But again, everything looks good in terms of where we are budget to actual on a percentage basis. The revenues, yeah, I mean, it's not going to be at the same level that you were seeing in the joint and the general fund, because there's so many other kinds of revenue in the general fund that we don't have. Most of the revenues that we get in the Joint Projects Fund, except for what we get reimbursed for Senior Center via Three Rivers, that's the intergovernmental piece that you see there. It's the tax revenue, and that will come when we levy those taxes. The other portion, I should say, and it's not broken out because it's not 715,000. There's both the intergovernmental revenues coming via Three Rivers from federal and state subsidies, but that's also City of Thomaston's contributions to the Joint Project Fund. So on page 16, then we break it out. So you've got the Senior Center, Archives, branch libraries, I forget, that's our portion of the cost for supporting the regional library system. EMA, and then on the last page, on 17, the transfers out. That's so all the revenues are collected in the Joint Projects Fund. A portion is used for these departments I just talked about. The rest then is transferred. That's our funding portion for recreation and 911. So we have transferred exactly 50% of what we budgeted to transfer over to those separate funds. Page 18, recreation. I know it's a fund of particular interest to a lot of folks. If you look on page 18, one of the good things, I think, in my opinion, is that we're over budget in terms of revenue slightly by almost 50. I shouldn't say over budget, but we're doing well with respect to revenues. And as a percent of what we budgeted, we're almost at 51% for June 30, 2023.
Is it, and we'll tee one up for you, Jason. So we're the charges for services is at 97% for June. Why?
Through June.
Through June, yeah. So we're only halfway through the year, and we're almost 100% of what we budgeted for revenue for charges of service. Why is it unusually high?
I need to know from Alan what's posted to, I'm assuming that's program registrations and facility rentals, right?
All of that including what we charge to the families for, participation in sports,
Sports, right.
uniforms and.
Means high participation, I think that's where you were going, Mr. Chairman.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Mhm.
Greater participation.
More programs.
It's not that we've raised our fees or anything like that. We're just seeing more programming and
Just
higher
like-
participation.
Yeah, just like the new flag football programs this summer.
Yeah.
It's more programs with one less staff member. So basically, the same staff providing more programs. Yeah. And increase registration in the existing programs. Thanks for letting me hit that one out of the park.
It was for us too.
So when you look at the rec fund and just look at those percentages, you look at where we are with respect to revenue, and you look at where we are with respect to expenditures halfway through the year. That's why, we predict a surplus for recreation. And that's a prediction. Things can change, but everything, unless you have something extraordinary happen that we didn't budget for, of course, we'll go in and amend the budget, but we should do okay with the recreation. It's very encouraging. That whole, the football field, the practice field was full yesterday evening, and you could hardly get down the street with all the cars and parents and kids everywhere.
I was there.
I'd wear the grass out than have to mow it.
Right. 911 phone?
Cheaper.
Just another one of our joint projects as well. We're
We're still down a director here, so.
Right, and 911, we have since done that. The reason we're showing that we're down is because we had not, from Upson County's commitment to 911 fund, we had not allocated resources or from the joint projects fund to the 911 fund, or recorded it timely is what I should say. It wasn't recorded as of June 30. So that's why you've got the big hole in the second line, because that other financing sources, that's us. Intergovernmental revenue is City of Thomaston.
Explain the next line, because I want you to start investing for me.
Well, I will. I'll be happy to explain that one. I can't say that we've always been perfect, but a great decision we did make was consolidating our accounts with Synovus Bank. And when we went to Synovus Bank, the interest rate that they gave us on all of our accounts was floating with the Fed funds rate. So as the Fed funds rate has gone up, and now it's 5.25, somewhere in that range, that's the effect. If you flipped back and looked at the total, back to that first page, and looked at interest investment income, I think it's over, it's 130,000. So that has really paid big dividends for us as a county in every fund. With our SPLOST funds, within our operating funds. So it's been a great deal. And anyway, I tease Synovus about it a little bit, but they gave us a great deal. And that's, and it's a little complicated, but there's an earnings credit that we get as well. So we really aren't paying any fees because we keep enough balance that the earnings credit that we get offsets fees for various things that we do. From ACH transactions and ordinary type transactions. So we're really doing well with it. And that helps our taxpayers, because that's less that we have to fund with tax dollars, the more tax, investment revenue that we have. So no genius there, but it was a smart decision, I think, to pull it all together, and it makes banking a lot simpler as well. All right, any questions? Okay, page 20, I included it, even though it's a component unit. I did not include the airport, no offense. The main reason I included IDA is because it's part of the process. And so you've got the same kind of table applied to the IDA fund as all the rest. So the intergovernmental revenues, obviously, that's City of Thomaston, other financing. We did not budget the county any financial support for IDA funds, so that's why those are zero. Their expenditures, they're looking really good at 41.2% of their total budgeted costs at this point. Real quick, like proprietary funds, page 21. This one looks a little different from most others in that in our expenditures, we're 59.2% of total budget expenditures, and I have some explanations at the bottom. Capital outlays are higher than budgeted amounts for fiscal year 2023. The $30,589, most of that is the new SCADA system. We paid for those out of the fund. We didn't go back, and we should go back and amend the budget for those expenditures, but we decided to pay for them out of that fund directly, obviously. There's sufficient fund balance in the water department to accommodate expenditures of that magnitude, so to speak. Supplies expenses are higher. The water department superintendent just basically reloaded his whole bench stock. They were really low on supplies, everything from nuts and bolts to pipe. They restocked, increased their level. They restocked a large portion of their pipe gallery from rusted to stainless steel pipe. So those were additional costs that we incurred this year. I do know, and I can't tell you all the exact details, but in talking with them on a regular basis, they were running into issues where if they had just had some parts on hand, they could have fixed problems then, as opposed to having to wait for parts to come in, ordering them. So he wanted to build up his parts supplies to make sure if we have a busted pipe or a busted water main, they've got everything they need to take care of the problem as quickly as they possibly can. Question?
What's the capital outlay?
Okay, the SCADA system was $30,589. There should have been, it's misclassified at the moment. We also had to put in, there was a large AC unit in the well house, or the pump house at the Thurston well that went out. We replaced that with a mini split. Waste billing, not much to talk about there. Everything was great. Nothing unusual. No surprises there. And I didn't read all those notes, back on page 21. There's other reasons too for some of the supplies. We've had to purchase more water in some cases than expected because of busted water mains, and so forth.
And why was the well pumped down for a month? Nobody knows.
I don't know all the details. I know it went down and there was not a backup pump available or one in supply. So we had to wait for one to order one and wait for it to be delivered.
Fortunately, we were able to buy water, right?
Right.
Okay. But we're gonna fix that Thurston well
Here we are.
That's all.
It's good to hear.
this year.
That took a lot longer than I thought, but my apologies.
Thank you, Al.
Okay.
A lot of good detail, and I know we went down a rabbit hole or two, but, we see the areas where we've got to, we gotta work on, so.
Right.
All right.
And I will say, Mr. Chairman, the chairman did print out the full report, the whole 83-page report. Anytime you want to see more detail, we can provide it for you. He's got everything at an account level, and I did put notations in there as well by certain account line items or account numbers.
Thank you. Really appreciate all the work you guys are doing. You know that. We give you a hard time, but That's what we're here for. Okay, gentlemen, new business, discussion and possible consideration on the airport authority request for a local match for runway lighting project.
Mr. Chairman, would we potentially get the board to vote to accept that as presented?
Oh, yeah, you do have it on there.
Financial report.
Okay, so let's back up then. Mitch, hang on a second. So staff recommends that we accept the financial report as presented. So could I have a motion on that staff recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll say.
Any discussion? Motion made and seconded to accept the staff's June 30th financial report. Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ellington?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes. Okay, new business. Request for local match for runway lighting project. You want to tee it up or just hand the ball straight to Mitch or?
Hand the ball straight to Mitch. I'm fine with it.
Mitch, we never get to see it. So appreciate you coming, spend some time with us.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. I got a description of the project in the proposal that you have.
Right.
And this is part of what we had budgeted for 2023. So you've seen these numbers before. In fact, our total budget for SPOS fund was $103,000 that we requested on the budget that we submitted in October. We have since looked at the market on hangars and have decided to put that off until we get a little stability in inflation and construction cost. So the amount that we're requesting tonight, unless we have an emergency, would be all that we are looking to spend in 2023. So $48,000 as opposed to $103,000. In addition, as far as hangars go, there has been rumors for some time that the state will participate in hangar construction, and I heard it from GDOT last week. So if we're patient, we could be looking at 50% to 75% participation from GDOT on building hangars, which would be huge for us in all the airports. The project that we're talking about tonight is one that is, if you work with my guys, it's desperately needed. We've had 5 times in less than a year where we've had a broken cable on the power supply for the runway or taxiway lights. Some of those lines have been in the ground for 30 years. All of them have been in the ground for over 20 years. So when you got 5 miles of cable and all of a sudden you got a break, it's very labor intensive and very time consuming to find and make those repairs. This project includes redoing all of the electrical cabling for the airport. It includes replacing 105 runway lights, 250 taxiway lights with LED lights, which will reduce our monthly cost on electrical bill for those. It being high intensity, it also will provide better visibility. It's not just for night landings, it's for visibility in low conditions like fog and stuff like that. It'll provide a safer environment for our customers and better service to keep people from having to divert to Macon or Columbus. Total price comes in at $974,000. We were a little anxious about funding. However, GDOT stepped up to the plate and found us some supplemental FAA funds, and the entire project will be funded at 95%. So as you can see, our cost is $48,000 for basically $1 million project. Any questions?
I got a bridge I need you to work on.
Y'all seem to get a better deal, better going through deal than we do, so.
Gee, he uses the same words, but, you know, like GDOT and stuff, but.
Well, aviation programs is a very good part of GDOT. They've been very good to us.
We have a very good airport that they're very proud of, and we're going to keep it that way. So So if that is, so gentlemen, you have a request for $48,702 from the 2016 Splosh as our 5% match for a basically $1 million project for runway lighting at the airport. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
I'll make a motion to approve the match as submitted.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Just one, so obviously nothing happens until the cash is in the bank or
Absolutely.
we don't have to.
We won't sign a contract with the bidder until we get a grant agreement from GDOT.
Yes, sir.
That's a given.
What's the timeline on that?
It could be as close as 60 to 90 days. It's going to depend upon the equipment and getting it all ordered and in place. It could be 120 days.
Great.
The timeline for construction is roughly 60 days.
Is the low bidder gonna hold that price?
Yes,
For that long?
yeah, he has to hold it for 120 days.
Okay. Good.
Any other questions, comments? All right, so I have a motion made and seconded to authorize the expenditure of $48,702 of 16 Splosh to fund this project. Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ellington?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes. Keep knocking out home runs.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it all.
Thank
Next time
you.
you get them down there talking about something, we would ask them about a bridge.
Yes, sir.
Get some extra concrete off the airport.
Guarantee you the airport guys don't talk to the bridge guys.
The bridge guys got to fly in here.
They don't have to cross that bridge to get to Highway 19. All right, discussion and possible consideration of a contract item agreement, water facilities, speaking of bridges, for project number 001-5615, bridge replacement on Jeff Davis at 10 Mile Creek with Georgia Department of Transportation.
Mr. Chairman, this item is pretty simple, and I think you may have even been in the office when we were negotiating the split between DOT and ourselves on the relocation of the water line that's under that bridge. So what you have is an agreement on GDOT's participation in that relocation. When we first started, we were at 75% responsibility. We negotiated with them for a few days, and then we were able to explain our financial situation to them a little better, and discussion of bridges and money available for capital outlay was a huge part of that discussion. In the end of these negotiations, we were able to procure a 75% cost share from GDOT, which would leave us with 25% of the cost for the relocation of the water line. And we were also able to get them to assure that we would cap at that estimated 25%, which is $48,937. So the total project is estimated to be $195,750. If it goes over that, GDOT will cover the difference. Again, our maximum, according to this contract, is $48,937. So,
Okay.
And that's for the water. We got sewer going under that bridge. I don't think so. It says sewer and water, so.
I think there's one other utility under it that's having to relocate. I think, isn't there gas under that as well? But it doesn't involve us. But
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Staff recommends approval.
So gentlemen, staff recommends approval for $48,937.50 for this project. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to go ahead and approve the $48,937.50 for the keep this project moving a little faster, I hope, on 10 Mile Creek.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? So, I have a motion made and seconded to authorize $48,937.50 of the 2016 Splosh for the utility relocate on the Jeff Davis 10 Mile Creek Bridge. Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ellington?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes. All right.
On the 10 Mile Creek, is this gonna speed the process up in here?
This is part of the, just part of the
Yes,
deal.
it's part of the process.
Yeah. So, all right. So the next discussion and possible appointment of voting delegate for the ACCG Legislative Leadership Conference Business Session. I guess I'll take this. Right now, I think I'm probably the only one going. So your choices are slim.
Which one is this?
This one.
It's the
October.
ACCG Fall Conference.
It's in Jekyll,
right?
Yeah, I'm going.
You gonna go?
Yeah, but you can be the delegate.
You sure? I'm happy to.
You can waste your time.
All right. So, all right. So is there a motion?
I'll move.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
So a motion made and seconded to.
I guess I
appoint-
should have said that nominate Chairman Norman Allen.
Okay, well, I was gonna fill the blank in with James Ellington.
Yes.
But since,
I'm
okay.
glad you brought that.
So motion made and seconded to nominate me to be the voting delegate for Upson County at the 2023 Legislative Leadership Conference. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Jones.
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ellington?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, now that I know that you and Commissioner Ellington are going, I think maybe I probably should go.
I need to look at it, I ain't had time.
There's some continuing ed that I gotta knock out, so. Next item is discussion and possible consideration of an updated intergovernmental agreement with Thompson County School Board of Education for school resource officers. All right, so Jason, if you'll allow me.
Yes, sir.
All right, so appreciate you looking into this and getting it done. So bottom line is, there were some changes made. I think it was basically an addition of one extra school resource officer, and that had not been reflected in the agreement. But the one piece that's missing to this that I don't have, and I don't think Jessica's gotten, it refers to an Exhibit A, which is a spreadsheet showing the estimated annual expenses, and you probably didn't see that either. We don't have that. Is there a suggestion?
Motion to table?
I'll make a motion, we table it until we can get the full.
Until you get Exhibit A?
Right.
All right, so I have a motion to table this, and so our next meeting is August the, what, 22nd?
No, I'm sorry. It's the 8th.
August 8th.
It's the 8th.
Yes. So motion to table this discussion until August the 8th. Is there a second?
Second.
Made, second. Mr. John, Mr.
Either one.
Ellington, Commissioner Jones. Okay, Ms. Jones.
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ellington?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes. Okay, discussion and possible consideration of an employee holding elected office policy. And before I kick it to Jason, I'll just say, this is something that we've talked about. It came up many months ago at one of our off-sites, our retreat. There's been times where by us not having a policy, it's created a perception of possible conflict. And so we talked about it, and we've said, hey, look, this is one way to address that. And so, Jason, I'll kick it to you.
So, based on the comments and the discussion we had at the retreat, the attorney and myself put together a proposed. Actually, our previous attorney had put the original draft together about 2 years ago, and then one of the members of the board asked us to be prepared to discuss it again at our February retreat. So that's when we brought it back up. I think we had a pretty healthy and robust discussion about it. So using the notes from that meeting, the attorney and myself came up with what you have in front of you. in these 6 bullet points. And if you, I can go through them very quickly if you would like.
Sure.
So Upson County, so it reads as follows. Upson County encourages its employees to seek election for public office and to actively participate in the democratic process. So we make a statement saying that we fully support it. Upson County employees who wish to seek election for public office must notify their supervisor and request a leave of absence without pay. So that's item 2. The leave of absence will begin immediately and will continue until the results of the election are known. That's bullet 3. If the employee is elected to public office, they must permanently resign their position from the county. That's bullet 4. Bullet 5, if the employee is not elected to public office, they may return to their position with Upson County at the end of their leave of absence. And then bullet 6 states, this policy supports Upson County's employees in their pursuit of public office while ensuring the integrity of county operations and avoiding any potential conflicts of interest. So what I also included is just some examples. This is very similar to whether if you're a federal employee, and I think some of you who have been federal employees in the past are familiar with the Hatch Act, which restricts political activities of the executive branch. So employees are prohibited from running for partisan office under the Hatch Act. We also have something similar in state policy. It's a little more specific, but in the state of Georgia under 45-1070, state employees cannot be barred from seeking or holding public office at the municipal or county level as long as the position is not full-time and doesn't conflict with their duties. So a state employee can run for county office or municipal office under those circumstances. However, employees cannot hold a state job at a state level at the same time, even if the elected position is part-time, like in the Georgia legislature. So, you know, there's obviously a federal precedent for it, there's state precedent for it. We just don't have a policy on it. So right now, you know, and I honestly, I've been approached by more than one employee over the 5 years that I've worked here about their interest in, and we're asking, well, what are the guidelines, what are the rules, and you know, and my response is there are none. So, and then I think the clearest example that we sort of batted around at the retreat was you would potentially have the possibility of having an employee of the Board of Commissioners that could run and win, let's say, a state Senate seat. So then you would have the potential to have an employee of your own that you would have to interact with that may not hold the same political views as you, and I guess that's fine, but you know, in extreme cases, what we've seen in other counties, we've certainly not seen that in our county, where members of a delegation will potentially not put forward the redrawn district lines on a county or a city's behalf. So you would have the potential to have an employee that could maybe be an impediment to policy things that you're trying to achieve yourself, which would also create a terrible conflict for that employee. You know, so if you were ever at conflict with that person politically, you know, they might have the feeling that some things that we're doing for them from a personnel standpoint might be a reflection of the political views that they held. So this would be an opportunity to make sure that that stays separate. And that's just kind of a wrap up of the entire conversation that we had at the retreat. I was kindly reminded by a member of the board that we had the discussion and that we never did move it forward for consideration. So here it is, and as you can see under staff recommendation, we have board direction. So this is certainly not. This is just a raw policy item that is really all yours.
And this is not something we're dreaming up. There's precedents in other municipalities and county governments that have similar policies.
Yes. We're
not just dreaming this up.
About half of them, of the 159 is what I was told, give or take. So. Okay. And again, there's no recommendation from staff one way or another. It's really just what the board is. And if you want us to work on it further, or whatever the direction is.
So what's your recommendation to take the wording you have, are you gonna come up with some new wording, or is this something to put in your employee handbook?
It would just be, you would take that
Yeah,
whole highlighted section there from that highlighted
and
line
just
down there and plug
insert
and
it
play
into
into
our
the policy manual.
That's right. As you remember, during our retreat, I think we had several iterations of different policies, and the attorney and I put this together just based on your input.
Mr. Chairman,
Sir,
I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and direct the county manager to modify our employee handbook to add a new section, items 1 through 6.
okay, is there a second?
No, second.
Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say a couple things on it. All right, and I think everybody up here knows that I am the instigator of this.
Usually are.
This policy. But I want the public to know something tonight that I've known for a while, but this really sunk in with this. I think this is a good policy. It protects the employee, and then it protects the county. It protects us against potential conflicts. But what the public may not know is we have an employee handbook, and when you see somebody that works for Upson County, whether that be the sheriff's department, animal control, the water department, everybody gets that same booklet. But I want everybody to be aware that if they do not report to Jason Tinsley under the direction of the Board of Commissioners, i.e., and I'm not picking on anybody, constitutional officers, and those being our sheriff's department, clerk of court, magistrate court, probate court, in those type of instances, they receive that same book, but they're not forced to follow that policy.
That's correct.
And I see, I just see that as unfair. What's good for one should be good for all. So what I would like us to do is to go to our constitutional officers and lay this in front of them and say, do you buy it? Because I just find it hard for somebody that works for you to tell, I'm just going to use examples, Jessica, you can't do this, and then somebody that works over here in another office can go do it. I can't find right in that in any type of way. And I think it'd be wrong for me to sit up here as a representative of the public, because some of those people that work for the county, I represent them too, because they live in my district. I'm their commissioner too, so I couldn't sit up here and impose something on them that I wouldn't impose on the other. So I'd like to see it imposed on everyone across the board. Because am I correct? We hand out employee booklets to every department, right? Constitutional officer and all. And it's like, well, I want to get their buy-in. And it may not be a problem. I may go, absolutely, and then they may go, no. Well, then that's when I got an issue. I'm not going to impose something on an employee that reports to Jason that another employee doesn't have to abide by. That's all I got to say. Now, what do y'all do about that?
I got something to say. You know I do. I always do, right? So it's the same with every item in that employee handbook.
I agree.
Every item, not just this. So, and there have been attempts by others in other counties to where if you receive county benefits, and that officer, constitutional officer, otherwise, they participate in your benefit package, then it is inferred, maybe implied, that they follow the same rules. But then there have been attempts to get those officers to sign an agreement, but it has caused issues when there's turnover in those offices. Like I don't know. Let's pick on Kilgore, Sheriff Kilgore, because I've got a great relationship with him, and he'll take this in the right context. If he doesn't agree with it, he doesn't have to do it. But but they still get the same benefits, healthcare, medical, vision, retirement that every other employee gets. But so if he, let's say he signed up for it and he signed it, and say 50 years from now when he's no longer our sheriff, the next one comes along. The next one comes along and says, "Oh, I'm not buying into that. I still want all that." Then it becomes an issue. So it's kind of a good faith thing that, hey, we can't tie their hands to it except at budget season, and then it becomes just, so basically you're darned if you do and darned if you don't. So, and I get your point exactly, but without rules and without some people at least trying to adhere to the rules, then there are no rules, and then we got chaos. So I hear you, but all we can do is swing the bat and hope for the best. Because if we try to enforce it, then it ain't gonna happen.
So we're going to enforce it on another department that, this individual works over, they can go down. I just don't.
It's the same thing with
let's just put it up for a vote.
Comp time.
I ain't talk about it anymore. I know how you feel. You know how I feel.
Well, I just want to point out, just for everybody here, it's the same time for
it's
vacation benefits, comp time. Anything. It's like, it may be a conflict to our manual, but unless that officer is willing to enforce it on his people, then
Mr. Chairman, I think comp time.
that creates a conflict.
Comp time is an excellent example.
Yeah.
Excellent example.
Yeah. So, you do the best you can, and you hope for the best results. But if you don't do anything, then, so I'll hush. Any further discussion?
Do before I start.
Any other discussion? So, who made the motion? You made the motion. You seconded it. So I have a motion made and seconded to adopt this policy for the county's personnel policy regarding Upson County employee policy on running for public office. Hearing no further discussion, Ms. Jones.
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ellington?
No.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes. All right.
So let's see if we work on that.
We'll do the best.
Commissioner Ellington is.
I agree with them 100%.
How y'all feel?
I agree with them 100%. But
I do too.
just our method on how we get there.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Next item on the agenda is county manager comments.
So, Mr. Chairman, a couple things. We have a need to schedule a work session. And I know that we had a back and forth, and part of it is my fault, but then I will try to hide behind Commissioner Watson a little bit. But I inadvertently scheduled a trip with my son on our normal day, so accept my apology for that. Yeah.
Don't-
So that's why I was pushing for the Tuesday, and that's also why I was glad that Commissioner Watson jumped on that.
All right.
But as far as I know, Commissioner Ellington, you cannot make it for that Tuesday, and we do need to have a millage rate discussion.
So where do we stand?
Well, I have not had a millage rate discussion with you on the one-off. I have had one-offs with everybody else. That's why I'm trying to call you. So, and I have talked to Commissioner Wilder, who's out of town right now. So, well, I guess I'll just go ahead and talk about it, really. Just comments. So just for general comments, we're talking about whether to accept the rollback rate as our tentative millage rate so we can move forward. So I think, other than yourself, which you have not talked to, everybody's leaning that way. Alan, don't look at me like that. I'm just kidding.
And I will add, Mr. Chairman, that's the only one that we need to advertise the way that the tax commissioner needs to advertise according to the code section. So we would we would obviously want to talk about all three of our millage rates, but that one in particular is the one that requires the taxpayer bill of rights
Right.
notification. So,
And when do we have to vote on it?
Well, we need to adopt a tentative millage rate at our next meeting.
and we could potentially do that at a work session as well. We could add that as an actual action item.
Yeah, we don't typically do that, so is it holding off till August the 8th, is that going to cause anybody any
Depends
consternation?
on when we can meet for the work session.
We can call a special meeting.
Yeah, I think it'll
Sure.
probably be better to call a special meeting to have the discussion so we can go ahead and.
See, we just got this, I mean, I hear you, but we just got this, and now it's like, okay, here it is, y'all approve it. Decide what you're gonna do, it's an important decision, one of the most important decisions you're gonna make all year, and do it now. And I'm not bashing y'all, I'm just saying, it seems like that's the way it always comes. Adopt a tentative middle rate so we can move on. And I know it takes a lot of work to get the digest accurate and all that stuff, and so anyway, I mean,
And just for a little background, Mr. Chairman, the tax assessor's office had this is the first year of us implementing our 6 new homestead exemptions, and that was really what the hangup was trying to get that correct. So, it was kind of
so.
starting from scratch for them.
So the struggle we have, especially during the summer months, to get everybody together for work sessions, I mean, I just wonder, can we get everybody together for a special called meeting to just do this? I mean, we could do the special called meeting on the day of our work session.
Well, that wouldn't,
You just won't be there.
Could you phone a friend?
now I'm moving furniture that day, actually.
Well, you ain't doing nothing, but,
Well, I'm gonna be supervising furniture. My daughter's moving in her college house.
yeah,
and
so,
They move in on the 1st of the month, and Tuesday's the 1st of the month.
so what we're talking about is rollback rate, and this is just so we can think about it, and, since you haven't got M&O, are these numbers still the same as we got the other day? M&O from moving it, roll back from 7360 to 6451. County unincorporated would remain unchanged at 1.250. Joint projects millage rate would roll back from 5110 to 4397. So,
Well, those rates we wouldn't have
Those are
to.
gonna change.
Yeah, you can wait till you actually set those. It's basically just your tentative general fund rate is what we need.
just the 7360 to 6451 is what we're really talking about. Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I would just say, for this discussion, you may want to put it in the context of what you're adopting a rollback rate, the storm damage and other projects. It's better to contextualize it, because
I know.
you'll understand why I'm recommending, Jason's recommending the unincorporated rate, other than what you just said.
You recommending what?
Well, I wasn't prepared for this
You-
discussion.
I know, but
I wasn't
since we're trying to get it,
Well,
We need a time to discuss it.
yeah, I just want everybody to have, so you can talk amongst yourselves and figure it out. So the challenge is going to be, we've got these, $1,000,001 now for the road repairs from the March storm, that we have fund balance to cover. And part of the other discussion, so we're having this tentative now, so we can think about it as we move forward, is we've had discussions amongst ourselves about what is a healthy fund balance, are we there? Jason and Allen, we're going to get back with Davenport and them to see, if our fund balance drops a little bit, if we buy into that and say we got a stable fund balance, if it drops, what the potential impact that may have on potential on future bond ratings. I don't think we've
And we're prepared to show you a number of scenarios. This is going to take some time. to
Yeah,
talk
I was
through.
about to say, this is gonna be a short.
So look at here.
I thought it was going to be a short one.
Look at here. So our next meeting that you want us to be voting on, we came in an hour early at 5 o'clock and discussed it before our meeting at 6. August 8th.
Be a work session.
So,
I mean, I just don't see it happening before August 8th, which is like right around the corner. Today's the 25th. It's like less than 2 weeks.
I'm good at any time.
I mean, generally these things, I mean, when we've done these in the past, they've been pretty much automatic. We've adopted the rollback rate. This is really the first time that we've had some conversations back and forth where it's like, they're over here saying, hold the phone a little bit, you might not want to do that. We're saying, well, yeah, we want to do it, and we think we've got a healthy fund balance that will sustain us and do things like let's add on to our road paving project. We got $1 million, $1,000,001 in road repairs. So,
It's a puzzle that we want to try to help you put together. There's a few moving parts to it this time around. So.
enough time.
I want all the facts.
I think,
Yeah.
if you don't mind,
An hour, enough
for
time.
the numbers we can say, forecasting if we went with the rollback, that would lead to a deficit of 1.8 million. So you add on another 1.1 million of storm damage. So you're right at 3 million fund balance. Just that. So that's why we need to talk to you guys and discuss this stuff thoroughly.
Will an hour do?
I think so.
I think so.
Is it possible we can do it video conference?
No, I'm an in-person kind of guy.
Okay.
That way I can reach out and choke somebody if I need to.
Do the 8th.
The other question would Monday the 31st work? We could just add it. We could just keep it on the work session.
So are we now doing the work session on Monday the 31st?
That's news to me.
Yeah,
I mean,
No,
I know we're asking.
No, I'm just saying, would Monday work for everybody? Rather than that Tuesday?
Why, you ain't gonna be here?
I'll be here either Monday, but that's what I'm saying.
Can you do Monday?
Mm-hmm.
I can do Monday.
I mean, I potentially can do Monday, but I mean, if they call and say, hey, you can move in a day early, obviously I need to get it done, because I'm paying people to tell me to do this.
So we'll shoot for Monday the 31st. That works.
Backup plan be August 8th at 5.
What time? What time?
What time is good for y'all?
Don't matter.
5:30 in the morning, I'm sending emails, so I'm not gonna do that to y'all, so.
Hey, 5:30 in the morning works great for me
It
too.
would have to be after 10 on a Monday.
Do you have court that day?
All right, so I'm here Monday at 11,
On Monday at 10?
Monday at 10. All right, we'll shoot for it.
Great, thank you.
We just need to get hold of Commissioner Wilder. I know he'll be back. All right. Any other comments?
That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Wow.
Ms. Jones?
I have none.
Mr. English? Hopefully we got some updates coming here pretty soon. I know there's that one piece of litigation that's out there that we've been patiently waiting on, and you're not ready to talk about it, but hopefully we'll have something on
Actually,
that.
I'll probably gonna defer to my esteemed colleague over there.
Are we talking about anyway, all right, we won't.
Steve?
All right. But obviously, there's some stuff coming. We know you're working on a lot, and, we see something here soon, so, all right. Mr. Jones?
Oh, okay. I only got a couple things.
You wrote it down.
I still want everybody, and everybody on YouTube, Bill, Rock Hill Fire Department, those 2 people that are injured seriously, they still need your prayers. It's, the last I got, well, both of them, they didn't expect them to make it, and they've come this far. And all we need to do is just keep praying and bring them a little farther. It's very serious, they got good families, and I want you to keep them in your prayers. All right. Want to thank Alan. I'm glad you stuck around. At least you're keeping us you know, kind of on the right track, you know, financially. So, even if you went to Ole Miss, I don't know where you got your calculating numbers from, but, you know, you must have transferred out to Georgia or something for a little while. I don't think they got mathematics in Mississippi.
They don't.
All right.
And, you know, since I'm reaching out to Val, and hey, kudos to all the county employees. You know, we got people that are working out here at, you know, 9,500 degree heat, road department. They're keeping things going, and I appreciate everybody that works for Upson County. And that's it.
Ms. Jones?
No, I mean, we talked a little bit about everything I need to bring up tonight, so I'm good.
I'm gonna try to make it to a flag football game, so I don't have any comments.
All right. Echo what Commissioner Jones said. I mean, everybody's following the progress that the two Rock Hill volunteers are doing. It's going to be a long road for them. I'm glad it really warms your heart when you see the community surrounding them. And there are others in the community that need those same thoughts and prayers, but those two are primarily at the top of the list right now because of how it happened, is what they were doing when it happened. That's really it. School's starting soon.
Yeah, next week.
Keep them safe. And if there's no other comments.
It's August 4th?
Is that next week?
When is school start?
Tuesday. The first.
Oh, the 1st.
Yeah, next week.
All right, we'll see you guys Monday. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I have. Yeah. Yeah, I'm really proud of it. I wish I had
Another one?
I don't know. I didn't see any.
I haven't seen
You haven't
any.
seen any? It's not just.
Not a lot you know, you know?
I should. Next time, when she gets old enough, I probably should register her for tough. She needs that.
Yeah.